I was forced to be my disabled brother's caretaker for years. When I finally chose myself, my family fell apart. You won't believe what happened next. I know I might sound like a jerk, but please hear me out before judging. My situation is complicated, and I really need some outside perspective. I'm George, 24M, and I have a twin brother named Kevin, 24M. Growing up, we were inseparable. Our parents, Mom, 52F, and Dad, 54M, always joked that we were like two peas in a pod. We did everything together: sports, video games, even double dates in high school. Kevin was always the more outgoing one, captain of the soccer team and president of the student council. I was quieter, more into art and music, but Kevin always made sure I was included in everything. Our family wasn't rich, but we were comfortable. Dad worked as a high school teacher, and Mom ran a small bakery in our town. They always emphasized the importance of education and pushed us to do well in school. Kevin and I both had plans to go to college. He wanted to study business, and I was interested in engineering. Everything changed when Kevin got into a terrible car accident just after our high school graduation. It was supposed to be a fun road trip to celebrate the end of school. Kevin was driving, and I was in the passenger seat. We were singing along to the radio, not a care in the world. Then suddenly, a truck swerved into our lane. Kevin tried to avoid it, but we ended up rolling down an embankment. I walked away with just a few bruises, but Kevin, he suffered a severe spinal cord injury that left him paralyzed from the waist down. The doctors said he'd never walk again. It was like our whole world shattered in an instant. The medical bills started piling up immediately. Our insurance covered some of it, but nowhere near all. Mom had to sell her bakery to help cover the costs, and she took a job as a cashier at the local supermarket. Dad started tutoring after school and on weekends to bring in extra money. Even with all that, we were barely staying afloat. At first, I didn't mind helping out. How could I? Kevin was devastated by his injury, and I felt guilty for walking away from the accident unscathed. I'd sit with him for hours, trying to keep his spirits up, helping him with his exercises, anything I could do. I even deferred my college acceptance for a year to stay home and help. But as time went on, the expectations placed on me became overwhelming. I was expected to come straight home after my community college classes to take care of Kevin, help him with physical therapy exercises, and keep him company. My parents couldn't afford full-time help, so when they were at work, it all fell on me. My social life took a huge hit. I couldn't go out with friends or join clubs because I always had to rush home. Even on weekends, I was expected to stay in with Kevin. My high school friends eventually stopped inviting me places. The only person who still came around was my best friend Jason, 23M, but even he stopped visiting as much after a while. I think it was just too depressing for him. What really started to bother me was how my parents seemed to expect me to put my entire life on hold indefinitely. When I talked about wanting to apply to four-year colleges, maybe even out of state, they acted like I was being selfish. They kept pushing me to continue at the community college so I could live at home and help with Kevin. I felt trapped and resentful. I love my brother, but I was missing out on so many normal experiences. I didn't go to prom, never had a serious girlfriend, barely got to do any of the fun stuff most people associate with being in your early 20s. Meanwhile, I watched on social media as all my old friends moved on with their lives, going to college, traveling, starting careers. The worst part was, I could see Kevin slipping into depression. He'd always been so active and social, and now he was confined to the house most of the time. He tried to put on a brave face for me, but I could tell he was struggling. Sometimes, late at night, I'd hear him crying in his room. It broke my heart, but at the same time, I couldn't help feeling angry. Angry at the situation, angry at my parents for putting so much on me, even angry at Kevin sometimes, even though I knew it wasn't his fault. The breaking point came last week. After 2 years of taking classes part-time at community college while caring for Kevin, I finally decided to apply to some four-year universities. I got accepted to my dream school, a great engineering program about 5 hours away. When I told my parents, expecting them to be proud, they immediately started talking about how I couldn't possibly go there. They said I needed to stay close to home to help with Kevin. I lost it. I yelled that it wasn't fair for them to expect me to give up my future. That I'd already sacrificed so much. That they were the parents, not me, and it was their job to figure out how to take care of Kevin. I said things I'm not proud of, about how I was tired of putting my life on hold for someone who would never get better. My mom started crying, saying I was being selfish and uncaring. My dad just looked disappointed, which somehow hurt even more. Kevin overheard everything and locked himself in his room. He won't talk to me now. I feel awful, but also angry. I don't want to abandon my family, but I also don't want to give up on my dreams and ambitions. Am I really such a terrible person for wanting my own life? For wanting to experience college like a normal person, to have the chance to build a career and a future for myself? I've been staying at Jason's place for the past few days to get some space. My parents keep calling and texting, alternating between guilt-tripping me and begging me to come home. They're saying things like, how can you abandon your brother after everything? And we're a family, we're supposed to stick together. But where was this concern for family when they were putting all this pressure on me? Kevin has texted me a few times too. He says he understands if I want to go away to school, that he doesn't want to hold me back. But I can tell he's hurt and scared. We've never been apart for more than a few days since the accident. I'm torn and could really use some outside perspective on this whole mess. How can I balance my own needs and desires with my family's expectations? Is there any way to pursue my dreams without completely destroying my relationship with my parents and brother? Am I wrong for wanting more out of life than being my brother's caretaker? Part of me wants to just leave and never look back, to finally live my own life without all this guilt and pressure. But another part of me feels like that would be abandoning my family when they need me most. I love them, I really do, but I also need to think about my own future. I'm at a crossroads and I don't know which way to turn. Any advice would be appreciated. Update 1. It's been about 2 weeks since my last post, and a lot has happened. I want to thank everyone who responded. Your comments really helped me gain some perspective and find the courage to stand up for myself. After a few days at Jason's, I decided to go home and have a serious talk with my family. I knew it wouldn't be easy, but I felt like I needed to make my position clear. Jason offered to come with me for moral support, but I felt like this was something I needed to do on my own. When I got home, the atmosphere was tense. My parents seemed relieved to see me, but also wary. Kevin was in his room and refused to come out at first. I asked my parents to sit down with me in the living room so we could talk. I started by apologizing for blowing up and leaving without properly explaining myself. Then I laid out everything I've been feeling for the past 6 years, the pressure, the resentment, the guilt, the fear of missing out on life. I told them how much I love Kevin and how I want to support him, but that I also need to live my own life. My mom tried to interrupt several times with guilt trips, bringing up how much Kevin needs me and how we've always been there for each other. But I stood my ground. I pointed out that it wasn't fair or healthy for them to place so much responsibility on me. I reminded them that I'm their son too, not just Kevin's caretaker. The conversation got heated at times. My dad accused me of being selfish and ungrateful, saying that family should come first. I countered by asking if they'd have the same expectations of me if our situations were reversed. Would they expect Kevin to give up his future to take care of me? That seemed to strike a chord. For the first time, I saw a flicker of understanding in their eyes. My mom broke down crying, admitting that they'd been unfair to me but saying they just didn't know what else to do. She talked about how scared they were after Kevin's accident, how they felt overwhelmed by the medical bills and the sudden need for constant care. They leaned on me because I was there and willing to help, but they never stopped to think about how it was affecting my life. My dad was quieter, but I could see he was processing everything I said. He admitted that they hadn't been thinking long-term when they asked me to defer college and stay home. They were just trying to get through each day, and before they knew it, years had passed. I suggested that we look into other care options for Kevin, maybe a part-time aide or some programs that could give him more independence. I also made it clear that while I love my family and want to help, I'm going to pursue my education at my dream school. They didn't exactly embrace the idea, but they didn't outright reject it either. We agreed to spend the next few weeks researching options and trying to come up with a plan that works for everyone. My dad even suggested reaching out to a family therapist to help us navigate this transition. The hardest part was talking to Kevin. He finally agreed to see me the next day. When I went to his room, I was shocked by how withdrawn and depressed he looked. I realized that in focusing on my own frustrations, I'd been blind to how much he was struggling too. We had a long, emotional conversation. Kevin admitted that he felt like a burden and that he hated seeing how his injury had impacted all of our lives. He talked about feeling guilty every time he needed help, and how he could see the toll it was taking on all of us. He said he wanted me to go to college and live my life, but he was scared of being left behind. I reassured him that I wasn't abandoning him, that I'd always be his brother and would always be there for him. We talked about ways we could stay connected even with me away at school, regular video calls, online gaming sessions, me coming home for visits when I could. We even started brainstorming ways he could become more independent, like taking online classes or finding a work-from-home job. By the end of our talk, things felt a little better between us. Not perfect, but at least we understood each other more. For the first time in years, I felt like I was talking to my twin brother again, not just someone I was responsible for. So that's where things stand now. My parents are reluctantly looking into care options for Kevin. I'm proceeding with my plans for college, starting to fill out financial aid forms and looking into scholarships. It's still tense at home, but at least we're communicating more openly now. I know we have a long way to go, but for the first time in years, I feel hopeful about the future. There's a lot to figure out: how to pay for my college and Kevin's care, how to help Kevin become more independent, how to rebuild our family relationships. But at least now we're facing these challenges together, instead of sweeping them under the rug. I'll keep you all updated as things develop. Thank you again for all your support and advice. It really made a difference. Update 2. It's been about a month since my last update, and I wanted to share some developments. The good news is that we've made some progress in finding alternative care options for Kevin. My parents finally agreed to meet with a social worker who specializes in helping families of people with spinal cord injuries. She's been incredibly helpful in connecting us with resources we didn't even know existed. We found a program that provides part-time personal care assistance at a subsidized rate. It's not full-time care, but it's enough to take some of the pressure off my parents and me. The aid comes for a few hours each day to help Kevin with his physical therapy exercises and personal care needs. Kevin has also started attending a support group for young adults with spinal cord injuries. It meets twice a week at a local community center. At first, he was reluctant to go, but after a few sessions, I've noticed a positive change in his attitude. He's meeting people who understand what he's going through in a way that we can't, and it seems to be really good for him. The social worker also helped us find some adaptive technology that's making it easier for Kevin to use a computer. He's talking about maybe taking some online classes, which is huge. It's the first time since the accident that he's shown interest in furthering his education. The bad news is that my relationship with my parents, especially my mom, is still strained. They're going along with the new arrangements, but I can tell they're not happy about it. My mom makes passive-aggressive comments about how they're struggling to afford the care aid, even though it's subsidized, and how Kevin misses having me around all the time. Dad is trying to be more understanding, but I can see he's torn between supporting my decision to go to college and feeling like I'm abandoning the family. He's been asking a lot of questions about my college plans, which I think is his way of trying to show interest, but it often feels like he's looking for reasons why it won't work out. I've been trying to stay firm in my decision to go away to college while also showing that I still care. I've been helping my parents navigate the new care arrangements and spending quality time with Kevin when I can. It's a delicate balance, and honestly, it's exhausting. The most positive change has been in Kevin's attitude. Since starting the support group, he seems more motivated and less depressed. He's even talking about maybe taking some online classes. Seeing him start to reclaim his independence has really reinforced for me that I made the right decision in pushing for change. We've had some good moments too. Last weekend, Kevin and I had a video game marathon like we used to do before the accident. For a few hours, it felt like old times. We laughed, we trash-talked each other, and for once, we weren't focused on his injury or my leaving. It was just two brothers hanging out. I'm set to leave for college in a few weeks. As the date gets closer, I can feel the tension at home ramping up again. My parents keep making comments about how they don't know how they'll manage without me. Part of me is tempted to cave and stay, but I know that wouldn't be healthy for any of us in the long run. I'm nervous about leaving, but also excited. For the first time in years, I feel like I have a future that's my own. I've been in touch with my future roommate, and we're making plans for move-in day. I'm looking forward to my classes and the chance to meet new people who don't know me as Kevin's caretaker brother. At the same time, I'm worried about how things will go at home when I'm gone. Will my parents really step up and take on the responsibilities I've been handling? Will Kevin continue to work on his independence, or will he backslide without me there to encourage him? I'm trying to set up systems to stay connected, regular video chats, a shared online calendar for Kevin's appointments and my school schedule, but I know it won't be the same as being there. I just hope that over time, my family will come to understand and accept my decision. I'm not abandoning them, I'm just trying to build a life for myself while still being there for them as much as I can. It's a difficult balance, but I'm determined to make it work. Update 3. It's been about 2 months since I left for college, and I wanted to give one final update on how things have been going. The transition hasn't been easy, but it's been better than I expected. Being away from home and experiencing college life has been amazing. I've made new friends, joined the robotics club, and I'm really enjoying my classes. For the first time in years, I feel like I'm living my own life instead of just existing for others. My roommate, Chris, has been great. He's really understanding about my family situation and doesn't mind when I need some quiet time to video chat with Kevin or my parents. We've even become good friends, often studying together or grabbing meals in the dining hall. Academically, I'm doing well. It's challenging, especially since I'm a bit rusty after taking mostly general ed classes at community college, but I'm managing. My favorite class is Introduction to Engineering Design. We're working on a group project to design a prosthetic limb, which feels especially meaningful given Kevin's situation. Back home, things have been up and down. The care arrangements for Kevin are working out okay, but there have been some hiccups. My parents struggled at first with having a stranger in the house helping Kevin. There were a few panicked phone calls in the first couple of weeks where they begged me to come home. I stayed firm, though. I reminded them that this adjustment period was expected and encouraged them to give it time. I also reached out to the social worker who had helped us set everything up, and she provided some additional support to my parents. Kevin has been doing surprisingly well. He's taking 2 online classes, Introduction to Business and a creative writing course. He seems to be enjoying them, especially the creative writing. He's even started a blog about his experiences as a young adult with a spinal cord injury. It's been therapeutic for him and has connected him with a whole community of people in similar situations. We video chat a couple of times a week, and while I know he misses me, he seems to be adapting to the new normal. He's more engaged during our calls, telling me about his classes and the friends he's made in his support group. Last week, he excitedly told me about an adaptive sports program he's thinking of joining. It's great to see him looking forward to things again. My relationship with my parents is still strained, but slowly improving. My dad has come around faster than my mom. He even called me the other day just to chat about my classes and college life, which felt really nice and normal. He asked about my engineering project and seemed genuinely interested. It was a small thing, but it meant a lot to me. My mom is still struggling. She alternates between guilt-tripping me and giving me the cold shoulder. But I've noticed that her guilt trips are becoming less frequent and less intense. I think she's slowly starting to accept the situation. Last week, she actually asked me about my new friends and what the campus is like, which is progress. There have been some tough moments. Last month, Kevin had a health scare, a minor infection that's common for people with spinal cord injuries. My parents called me in a panic, and for a moment, I was ready to drop everything and rush home. But Kevin insisted he was fine and that I should stay at school. The infection cleared up quickly with antibiotics, and I realized that not every crisis requires my physical presence. I went home for a weekend about a month ago. It was strange being back, everything looked the same, but felt different. Kevin and I had a great time together, playing video games and watching movies like old times. My parents were a bit awkward at first, but by the end of the weekend, things felt more relaxed. Looking back, I'm glad I stood my ground and insisted on going away to college. It hasn't been easy, and there are still challenges ahead, but I feel like we're all in a healthier place now. My parents are learning to manage without depending entirely on me, Kevin is gaining independence, and I'm finally getting to experience life as a normal college student. I know our family will never be the same as it was before Kevin's accident, but I'm hopeful that we can build a new normal that works for all of us. It's a process, and we're all still learning and adjusting, but I think we're on the right track. Thank you to everyone who offered advice and support throughout this journey. Your encouragement really helped me stay strong during some tough moments. I may not update again unless something significant happens, but I wanted you all to know how things turned out. Here's to moving forward, one day at a time.